Welcome back to our channel, where we dive deep into the most explosive moments of your favorite daytime dramas. Today is a thrilling day to unpack a storyline that will forever alter the landscape of Los Angeles. Let's explore the devastating turning point that has just shattered the Forrester and Spencer families. The sprawling metropolis of Los Angeles has always been a battleground for fashion dynasties. But the recent corporate warfare between Forrester Creations and the rapidly ascending Logan brand has escalated into a realm of unprecedented hostility. At the epicenter of this monumental clash is the bitter, venomous dispute over Eric Forster's visionary designs. Katie Logan Spencer and her formidable husband, Bill Spencer, have weaponized these stolen masterpieces, broadcasting their debut collection across global billboards and reaping massive financial triumphs. However, this audacious maneuver has not gone unanswered. A multi-million-dollar lawsuit hangs over the Logan brand like a descending guillotine, casting a dark, suffocating shadow over their recent victories. The pressure is astronomical, and the psychological toll it has taken on everyone involved is immeasurable. For Katie, a woman whose brilliant mind is housed within a fragile physical vessel, this unrelenting stress is a dangerous catalyst waiting to ignite a fatal spark. Katie's harrowing history with heart failure and her subsequent transplant is a poignant cornerstone of her character, a constant, ticking reminder of her mortality amidst the ruthless world of high fashion. She has navigated boardroom brawls and romantic betrayals before, but the current climate is uniquely toxic. The lawsuit orchestrated by the Forrester family is not merely a legal maneuver. It is a deeply personal vendetta aimed at destroying the Logan legacy from the ground up. Katie has been carrying the crushing weight of this impending litigation, the guilt of utilizing Eric's contested designs, and the fierce desire to prove herself as an independent powerhouse. Every waking moment is consumed by the strategic demands of the Logan brand, leaving her highly vulnerable to the physical manifestations of extreme anxiety. Her transplanted heart, a miraculous gift that has sustained her through countless trials, is now beating erratically against a relentless tide of corporate terror and familial betrayal. The tension reached an absolute boiling point within the opulent, glass-walled confines of the Forrester Creations CEO office. Steffy Forrester Finnegan, the fiercely protective and fiercely proud co-CEO, has been watching her family's legacy being hijacked and flaunted by her most despised rivals. The stolen couture line was the ultimate insult, a blatant disrespect to her grandfather's genius that she simply could not stomach. When Katie stepped into Steffi's domain, the atmosphere instantly became toxic, thick with unspoken resentments and a simmering, dangerous rage. Steffi, already pushed to the absolute brink by Hope Logan's secret defection and the relentless public relations nightmares plaguing her company, viewed Katie not just as a corporate adversary, but as a treacherous thief attempting to dismantle the Forrester empire from the inside out. The confrontation was inevitable, a violent collision of two matriarchal forces determined to protect their respective territories at any cost. As the argument ignited, the verbal sparring quickly deteriorated into a vicious exchange of deeply personal, cutting attacks. Steffi's voice, sharp and commanding, echoed off the walls as she accused the Logan brand of lacking any original talent, reducing Katie's entire enterprise to a parasitic entity feeding off Forrester greatness. She weaponized the multi-million-dollar lawsuit, promising Katie that the legal ramifications would leave the Logans destitute, humiliated, and begging for mercy. Katie, refusing to cower in the face of such intimidation, fired back with her own brand of icy defiance. She defended her actions, matched Steffi's fury with a smug assurance of the Logan brand's unstoppable momentum, and refused to apologize for their soaring success. The air in the office crackled with a dangerous electricity, every word a calculated strike meant to inflict maximum psychological damage. Neither woman was willing to yield an inch, their mutual hatred blinding them to the catastrophic precipice they were rapidly approaching. Then, In a terrifying fraction of a second, the verbal warfare mutated into shocking physical violence. Steffi, completely consumed by a blinding, uncontrollable rage, lost all sense of professional decorum and personal restraint. The sheer audacity of Katie's defiance, combined with the agonizing pressure of the crumbling Forrester stability, pushed Steffi over the edge of reason. With a swift, vicious motion, Steffi raised her hand and delivered a resounding, earth-shattering slap across Katie's face. The sharp, explosive sound of the impact seemed to freeze time within the CEO office. It was a visceral release of pent-up fury, a physical manifestation of the deep-seated animosity that had been festering between their families for decades. But the immediate, fleeting satisfaction of the strike instantly evaporated, replaced by a chilling realization of the horrific boundary that had just been violently crossed. The physical force of the slap sent a violent shockwave through Katie's entire body, snapping her head to the side and throwing her completely off balance. But it was the profound psychological trauma of the assault, compounding the already suffocating stress of the million-dollar lawsuit, that triggered a catastrophic internal chain reaction. Katie's eyes widened in sheer terror as a sudden, agonizing tightness gripped her chest like a vice. The massive adrenaline spike, meant to trigger a fight-or-flight response, instead overwhelmed her fragile cardiovascular system. Her transplanted heart, which had been working overtime to sustain her through the relentless corporate warfare, suddenly began to fail under the unbearable emotional and physical strain. The color rapidly drained from her face, replaced by a sickly, ashen pallor as she gasped desperately for air that seemed to entirely evade her burning lungs. The horrific reality of the situation unfolded in agonizing, terrifying slow motion. Katie's trembling hands flew to her chest, her fingers clawing at the fabric of her blouse, as if trying to physically reach the failing organ beneath her ribs. A ragged, breathless gasp escaped her lips, a sound of pure, unadulterated agony that instantly shattered the hostile atmosphere of the room. Her knees buckled beneath her, completely unable to support her weight as the world spun into a dizzying blur of pain, panic, and encroaching darkness. She collapsed heavily onto the polished hardwood floor of the CEO office, her body curling inward in a desperate, futile attempt to protect her failing heart. The image of the powerful, defiant Katie Logan reduced to a fragile, dying woman on the floor was a devastating testament to the lethal consequences of their bitter, unrelenting rivalry. Steffi stood frozen in place, her hands still hovering in the air, her eyes wide with a paralyzing mixture of shock and dawning horror. The furious fire that had consumed her only moments ago was instantly extinguished, replaced by an icy, suffocating dread that rooted her to the spot. She watched, completely immobilized, as Katie writhed on the floor, the terrifying reality of what she had just caused crashing down upon her with the weight of a collapsing building. Steffi had wanted to assert her dominance, to punish Katie for the stolen designs, but she had never intended to become the catalyst for a fatal medical emergency. The gravity of her actions, the physical assault, the ensuing heart failure, paralyzed her vocal cords. She could not speak, could not move, trapped in a waking nightmare of her own, making as the life slowly drained from her rival right before her terrified eyes. Suddenly, the heavy wooden doors of the CEO office burst open with explosive, thunderous force. Bill Spencer, a man synonymous with ruthless power and unyielding control, stormed into the room like a hurricane. He had likely come to retrieve his wife, to stand by her side and assert his dominance in the lion's den of Forrester creations. But the scene that greeted him instantly shattered his composed, commanding exterior into a million jagged pieces. His sharp, calculating gaze locked onto the horrific sight of Katie crumpled on the floor, clutching her chest in the terrifying throes of a massive cardiac event. The transformation in Bill was instantaneous and utterly terrifying. The billionaire titan vanished, replaced by a desperate, primal force of nature witnessing the potential death of the woman who anchored his very soul. Bill lunged across the expansive room, his expensive suit forgotten as he dropped heavily to his knees beside Katie's trembling, fragile form. His large hands gently, frantically framed her pale face, his voice cracking with a raw, uncharacteristic panic as he pleaded with her to stay awake, to keep fighting the darkness. The sheer desperation in his erratic movements was a stark, heartbreaking contrast to his usual stoic demeanor. He roared for someone, anyone, to call an ambulance, his voice a thunderous, agonizing cry that reverberated through the halls of Forrester Creations, demanding action. In that singular, terrifying moment, the corporate wars, the stolen designs, and the million-dollar lawsuits ceased to exist. The only thing that mattered in Bill Spencer's universe was the faint, struggling heartbeat of Katie Logan. As the chaotic reality of the medical emergency unfolded around them, Bill's frantic gaze slowly lifted from Katie's agonizing face and locked onto Steffy, who was still standing in stunned, trembling silence. The look that crossed Bill Spencer's face was not merely one of anger. It was a chilling portrait of pure, unadulterated murderous intent. His eyes, usually cold and calculating, were now ablaze with a hellish, consuming fire that promised absolute ruin. In that silent, terrifying exchange, Bill deduced exactly what had transpired in the moments before his arrival. He saw the guilt, the sheer horror etched into Steffi's features, and he understood with absolute certainty that she was the catalyst for Katie's collapse. The glare he shot at Steffi was a physical weight, a promise of uncompromising annihilation that promised to salt the earth of the Forrester legacy. This was no longer a petty dispute over fashion lines, stolen sketches, or corporate espionage. Steffi's impulsive loss of control had crossed a sacred, unforgivable boundary, transforming a bitter business rivalry into a deeply personal, apocalyptic blood feud. Bill Spencer's profound love for Katie is the singular vulnerability in his otherwise impenetrable armor, and by threatening her life, Steffi had unwittingly awakened a sleeping Leviathan. As the distant wail of sirens began to echo through the Los Angeles streets, signaling the desperate arrival of the paramedics, Bill's brilliant mind was already racing, formulating a strategy of total, scorched earth destruction. He would not just sue Steffi. He would systematically dismantle her life, her company, and her family piece by agonizing piece. The Forrester name, which he had fought so fiercely to protect, would become mere collateral damage in his unyielding quest for vengeance. The ramifications of this catastrophic event will send apocalyptic shockwaves through the entire fabric of Los Angeles. The Spencer Empire, a massive, global conglomerate with limitless financial and media resources, is about to be entirely mobilized for a singular, destructive purpose. Bill will leverage every contact, every media outlet, and every ruthless tactic in his extensive arsenal to obliterate Forrester Creations from a map. The multi-million-dollar lawsuit over the stolen designs will pale in comparison to the ungodly wrath Bill is about to unleash upon Steffi and her family. He will target Steffi's leadership, Ridge's legacy, and the very foundation of their familial wealth. The Logan brand, born from the contested genius of Eric Forrester, will now transition from a business venture into the ultimate weapon in Bill's crusade to avenge the woman he loves, ensuring that the Forrester family pays the ultimate price